continuing my TOA tips. I've done like every room, um, and they probably look in succession. By the way, I'm going to use an ambrosia here just to top me off and keep me full because I don't really need it. This is a non-insanity. I usually use insanity, but the reason I don't like insanity that much nowadays is because I can do a 445 with insanity on. It's a plus 50, right? So this would be a 465, and you can't really realistically skull skip. Yes, you can. I mean, yes, if you are tick perfect and there is no like deviation at all. I mean, I'm talking about any kind of lag, any kind of misclick, you will be able to skull skip. But if there is any fucking misclick, any kind of lag or any kind of server lag or anything, you will die because it will hit you for like 100 fucking 10 damage, and sometimes it hits higher than that, I believe. And unless you tick eat an ambrosia, which I already used, but again, I'm not on insanity right now, or you like perfectly time a sun Karis, you will die. There is very limited times where you're going to get hit by like a 70 or 80 instead, because each skull I think adds like 80 damage or some shit, or maybe even one skull does 110. I think it's just even one skull. Um, and I don't like relying on the fact that like the server is not going to lag, or because you have to understand these raids. This is a longer raid than it should be because I've done a lot of instructive things, and I've also had a bit of a faux pas, you know, where I would go in and not be potted because I was trying to explain something. But in a, on average, 30-35 minute raid without like T-bow and stuff, and you're doing 400s, you don't want to rely on that one misclick to be the complete end of the raid. And there is really nothing you could do outside of a tick perfect ambrosia. And even, sorry, excuse me, even then, I have died because you would heal to like 120 and it would fucking do max HP. I think that's its max. I'm not positive. It could be 110. But yeah, you need to be tick perfect on that. So if you skull skip, you actually match the points. The difference is, for every 5 invocations, you increase the weighting. Or you decrease the weighting, sorry. I shouldn't say increase or decrease. You alter the weighting so that you're more likely to get um, a shadow and the Missouri pieces than you are the Fang and the Lightbearer. Aldinus Ward, I believe that's how you pronounce it, is like a fucking third or fourth of those of the Fang, which sucks because it's more rare, but the other rewards are pretty hefty, like 40-30 mil for the Missouri pieces, minus the mask, which kind of sucks. Um, so you do have that benefit of higher invocations. You are increasing, or rather altering the weighting so that your odds of a better reward are higher. But the points are what dictate whether or not you can or cannot roll for a purple. So if I'm reaching 25,000 points with skull skips on a 415 and a 460 is, and I didn't fucking pray there because I'm trying to formulate my thought here, and a 460 is giving me, I don't really need to brew there, but I'll just top my HP. By the way, a tip here before I finish my thought is once the salt is down to 0, it will reset everything to 125. So you can brew up right before, and then it will slowly drain. But once I do a 460 and I don't skull skip, and you're talking about Wardens is the most impactful stage for the damage. By the way, use your defense reducing shit here. You can even use the well, I don't have it now, but I usually have a second sip of the adrenaline. So that's going to apply regardless of the hit, the accursed staff. The accursed staff, which I talked about in another video. But yeah, if I'm doing a 460 and I'm getting like 25.3k points, and I'm doing a 415 and I'm getting 25.1k, so I'm trading 200 points for a faster raid, and the difference is the skull skipping. Like, by and large, the difference is the skull skipping because it's like 600 HP that you're trading, or 800, 600, something like that. Which Wardens is the most impactful for the points in the entire raid. So, yeah, unless you trust that you will never fucking mess up or that the servers won't lag, which absolutely happens all the time, especially during the night. Which that one mistake will kill you, unless you try. By the way, this dropped by 20 because I usually finish at 35 minutes, but again, I was too busy trying to instruct. But yeah, this is usually a 415 with 25k points. No purple. I'm actually dry for purple because I'm getting 25.1k on average every raid, and I'm dry for purple by like fucking 40 raids now or something, 35 raids. But that's not terrible money. Yeah, the Wardens is the most impactful when it comes to points. So skull skipping is huge for point, accumulation. But if you trust that it will never happen, because that's what I did. I was on insanities, 445s, 460s, stuff like that, and I was like, oh shit, like 25k points a game, 25.4, 25, nice, and I'm having a lot of weighting altered because of the invocations by 5. This was a recent change they did instead of by 50 to kind of reward you more for the incremental changes, which is amazing because, again, it's beginner friendly, but it also has a high skill ceiling. And I think that's a perfect way to introduce a raid content, especially when it's supposed to be group content. And it's solo friendly, which is not usual to raids, which just makes TOA perfect. I just wish the pricing wasn't so fucking wacky right now. But yes, Wardens is the most important. So unless you want to fucking risk that, which I've done plenty of 40-minute raids with the 450s and shit, that I have thought I fucking hit that skull and I got hit a fucking 99, or thought I hit that skull and got hit a 110, and that was it for the entire raid. And I just don't want to trade off what is maybe a 2% weight change in. And I don't even know if it's 2%. I don't know the percentage, but I'm sure it's not very high, because of course that would be kind of busted for the 5 increments of marginal changes. But yeah, I didn't want to trade that 2% as long as I could get comparable points. So with skull skips, 24.899 or 24.899, which the average is anywhere from that to like 25.1 or 25.2. It really depends on the way you take the route. So I think I did Baba before I did Akka. If I did Akka before Baba, I think I would have had more points because Baba would have been a higher level. But yeah, essentially every different room has different weighting in points, but Wardens being the most. So Skull Skip is the most impactful when it comes to just adding points. These are the invocations I use. Um, Hardcore Run, Walk for It, Walk the Path, Pathfinder. I've thought about Path Master, but for 10 points, it's not worth how much longer it takes. I've did the math for this, and obviously I tested it, and it was a difference of like 250 points or something, because I think it was like 250 or 300 points for like a whole level boost on every other boss. No help needed, you don't need it. And again, I was talking about this in I think another segment of this TOA where I said I had plenty of pots left and you don't have to butterfly Akka, you don't have to do the min-maxing, red Xing, etc. unless you need to conserve supplies. This was why it was thought of and invented, because it was a necessity. But if you don't have to worry about, oh, I don't know how to do this. There's ways to do it without it. Even if I didn't have a shadow, there are ways to do it without it. When I had a Bofa, I wasn't butterflying because I had a Bofa, and I was still able to do 400s, right? So you don't necessarily need to do it. If you feel daunted by that, you don't need to learn that to do it. Of course, it would be better for supplies, and it would allow you to push further invos, but when you're learning, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Deadly Prayers on a diet, living larvae. I put medic on only for this one right here, only for when I'm doing transmogs, which it's fucking like 12-minute rooms for the transmog for medic. Double trouble, keep back. Pretty annoying ones. They are manageable, but they're annoying. I think they're the most annoying just because the damage is so fucking absurd, like 35s, burning, etc. A lot of the other rooms you can avoid. This is if this was on, if keep back was on, Double Trouble less so, but if keepback was on, I would definitely say that butterflying is worth learning. But if you're not doing keepbacks, you're perfectly fine taking the damage and using Karis. Upset stomach, all the, standard. And again, I explained why insanity is actually not a better trade-off unless you are trying to push very high invos for the waiting chance. Because If you do add insanity, of course you will get more points, but because you're less likely to skull skip, most people do not skull skip with insanity. Because again, it's such a fragile, like sensitive thing that if it fucks up once, you've died. And it's not always a thing of mechanics. It's a thing of like server lag or any kind of fucking tick delay, whatever. You're dead. Um, and without skull skipping, the points are comparable. So if you skull skip, sure, go ahead. It's like fucking 27k points or something. It's awesome. Um, but yeah, that is. I think this is my longest segment. But yeah, that is my invocation. It's 415 right now. It's what I've figured out works. And 9 out of 10 raids is going to be a sub 40 um, raid. 36 minutes, 35 minutes, even in times where DPS feels kind of off. But yeah, this is my TOA segments. Hope you learned something about it, and I think I've talked the most in this kind of, I think, a collective of 25 minutes than I've ever talked in the cadence and speed that I have, but I could be wrong. All right.